If you like our video, click the button to subscribe to our channel and get easy access to new content. To see our full suite of ad-free video courses, instruction manuals, and quick reference guides, visit us at www.teachucomp.com. The Curvature Pen tool in Photoshop lets you draw curved paths and shapes in a Photoshop document. To use the Curvature Pen tool in Photoshop, click the Curvature Pen tool button in the Tools panel. This tool shares the same button as the Pen tool, Freeform Pen tool, Add Anchor Point tool, Delete Anchor Point tool, and Convert Point tool, and the button shows the icon of the tool last selected. So, if needed, click and hold down on this button in the Tools panel, and then select Curvature Pen tool from the side menu that appears to select it. If needed, to show a drop down menu of saved tool presets from which you can choose if you created any for the selected tool. Click the Click to open the Tool Preset Picker button at the left end of the Options bar control panel, and then select a saved preset choice. Next, select the drawing mode to use for the Curvature Pen tool from the Pick Tool Mode dropdown in the Options bar control panel. To draw a path, select the Path choice, which is the default. Alternatively, to create a shape, select the Shape choice from the dropdown. This choice determines the other options that then appear in the Options bar control panel. Relatedly, then select where to create the path or shape using the selected drawing tool. If drawing a path, then select the path in the Paths panel to which to add the new path component. If you do not select a path before drawing with the Curvature Pen tool, the path is added to the default work path in Photoshop instead. The work path is a temporary path to which you can save path components you create. Alternatively, if drawing a shape with the selected drawing tool, select a blank raster layer in the Layers panel to convert into a shape layer instead. If you select a layer containing content in the Layers panel, you will instead create a new shape layer above the selected layer in the Photoshop document. Alternatively, if you do not select any layer in the Layers panel, and the Path Operations dropdown in the Options bar control panel is set to its default New Layer choice, then a new shape layer is added to the top of the layer stack when you draw the shape in the Photoshop document. To set the way the individual path component lines appear in Photoshop as you draw with the selected drawing tool, click the Set Additional Pen and Path Options dropdown in the Options bar control panel. These are the same as the options you can set when using the Pen tool in Photoshop, as shown in the earlier lesson titled How to Use the Pen tool in Photoshop. You can review the settings there if needed. Note that these settings apply to all the pen tools and drawing tools in Photoshop. To close this menu again when finished, click the Set Additional Pen and Path Options dropdown in the Options bar control panel again. To then draw curved lines with the Curvature Pen tool in Photoshop, hover your mouse pointer over the location at which to start drawing the path component. Your mouse pointer should look like a pen tip with an asterisk next to it, which shows you are about to draw a new path component. Then click once to set the initial starting point of the path component line and add an anchor point to that location. Then move your mouse pointer to the place on the path component line where you want to add another anchor point, and click again to add another anchor point to that location and draw a straight line between the two anchor points. Then continue to the third location at which to add a curvature line, and click and hold down at the point to add the anchor point and then see the curve appear on the path you have drawn. Move your mouse pointer into the position at which to set the current anchor point and then release the mouse button. Continue moving your mouse and clicking to continue to add curved anchor points and draw lines between them. Alternatively, to add a straight line anchor point instead of a curved anchor point when using the Curvature Pen tool, double-click to add a straight anchor point. To finish drawing and close the path component, hold your mouse pointer over the starting anchor point until your mouse pointer looks like a pen tip with a small circle next to it. Then click the initial anchor point to draw a closing line from the previous anchor point back to the initial anchor point to close the shape. Alternatively, to finish drawing without closing the path component, press the Escape key on your keyboard. To toggle a curved anchor point to a straight anchor point, or vice versa, when the Curvature Pen tool is activated in Photoshop, simply double-click the desired anchor point in the shape component. To delete an anchor point, click it to select it. Then press the Delete key on your keyboard. To move an anchor point when the Curvature Pen tool is activated in Photoshop, hover over it until your mouse pointer turns into a black arrowhead with a small circle next to it. Then click and drag it. You can draw multiple path components, also known as subpaths, within a single path selected in the Paths panel. You'll examine selecting path components and path component segments in a later lesson. After selecting multiple path components or shapes, you can then use the other buttons, which appear in the Options bar control panel, to align, distribute, and merge selected paths and shapes in Photoshop, which we will also discuss later. In addition to creating paths, the Curvature Pen tool can also create shapes. You use the same drawing techniques when creating shapes with the Curvature Pen tool as when drawing paths. However, instead of drawing paths in the Paths panel directly, you draw shapes in layers in the Layers panel as mentioned earlier in this lesson. To draw shapes after selecting the desired layer in the Layers panel and then selecting the Curvature Pen tool in Photoshop, select the Shape choice from the Pick Tool Mode dropdown in the Options bar control panel. Then set the options for the Curvature Pen tool in the Options bar control panel. The shape options when drawing a shape using the Curvature Pen tool are the same as when drawing a shape using the Pen tool, as shown in the previous lesson titled Using the Pen tool in Photoshop, so we won't cover them all again in this lesson for brevity's sake. The remaining options are the same as when drawing paths with the Curvature Pen tool, as we just discussed earlier in this lesson. However, there is one new checkbox option that is enabled. To align the vector shape's edges to the pixel grid, check the Align Edges checkbox. After setting the options for drawing shapes with the Curvature Pen tool, then use it to draw a shape within the selected layer using the same drawing techniques as when creating a path. Notice, however, that this time you will see the stroke and fill data appear when you finish and close the path component created by the Curvature Pen tool. At the same time, its shape layer is then selected in the Layers panel. To show the path for the selected shape layer, click the Paths panel in Photoshop to show its Shape Layer Name Shape Path path, where Shape Layer Name is the name of the selected shape layer. This path only appears in the Paths panel when its shape layer is selected in the Layers panel. Remember to click the subscribe button to see more of our videos. See our full suite of courses, instruction manuals, and quick reference guides at www.teachucomp.com.